All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. Today we're going to take a final look at the wild card weekend games, some yardage leader props this weekend as well, and then our favorite bets for the first weekend of the playoffs. Not too much movement in these lines for these wild card games. Chargers static -3 at Houston. The Ravens up to 9.5-point favorites from 8.5. Bills -9 against the Broncos still, with the confirmation that Jalen Hurts is practicing and seems good to go. The Eagles are up to 4.5-point favorites over the Packers after opening at 3.5. Commanders-Bucs still Bucs -3. And then the Vikings -1 after opening -2. It's not a huge difference, so it doesn't signify too much. Have any of your opinions changed about these games, Drew, as the week has elapsed?
I guess I'm a little surprised that there was no support for Pittsburgh. It seems to me pretty unlikely that Zay Flowers is going to go. I know they haven't completely ruled him out yet, but there should at some point be a little bit of a digestion of what the Ravens passing offense is going to look like without him. And I don't know that I feel like it's good enough to just boat race the Steelers here. I know you've seen the total come down. Some of that I think is more weather related than it is, kind of expecting any kind of a downgrade to the Ravens offensively. But, maybe more than anything else, like there are two factors with this Ravens game that I find fascinating. One, the Ravens are not incentivized to put their best plays on paper in this one if they don't have to. This is a team they've defeated twice, and I know it's a divisional opponent. I know they know them well. I know they may want to include some wrinkles the Steelers haven't seen before, but the homework assignment for the Ravens is pretty obviously just get through this one healthy, and then we'll try to bring our effort of the year this next 2 weeks to get to the Super Bowl. And so I'm not. I guess I'm that's kind of the big surprise for me is that this hasn't come off of an expectation of a double-digit win. Some places around the market, this is getting close to flat 10. Like that's there's been so much support for the Ravens, and it's been unfettered for weeks now. But to me, at least, the total coming crashing down is correct. But it should be commensurate with this spread coming in as well, and it's not.
Yeah, I'm confused about a few of these games, and we'll talk about two of them when we get to our best bets, because those are the two that I am most confused about. But with the Ravens, like, how are we rating these teams? Like, what are their power? If this is the line, if it's effectively -10, are we saying that the Ravens are like 7.5 to 8 points better than your average team, and the Steelers are just a bang average team?
Or more. Yeah. Like this is like the Ravens are being rated like they're all time right now, and they could be without their most important weapon in the passing game. So I'm pretty confused.
Yeah. I mean, it's a dreadful bet to make. Steelers +9.5 after looking at what they've served up the past few weeks, and there just seems to be just no ceiling whatsoever in this offense. But I do think that there is scope for the Steelers' defensive line to wreck the game and for it to just be a kind of a weird game where there's a forced fumble and then all of a sudden the Ravens are playing from behind and they don't have the passing attack that they have had all year because Zay Flowers is such a big part of it. It's like it's going to be Rashad Bateman and Isaiah Likely and Nelson Aguilar and Mark Andrews. And I don't know about what do you think about the Ravens' prospects of just running the ball down Pittsburgh's throat?
Another reason I love the under here, Jay, because I think it's not going to be easy, right? Pittsburgh's run defense is stout. Casey Hayward, amazing. Their linebacking core, dynamic. This is going to be a physical, hard-fought game on the ground. I don't think I guess here's the thing. Run it down their throat. Yes, agreed. They can do it. It should happen. It probably will happen. But I don't think it's going to be explosive runs, right? The type of running success that really, blows you up if you're on an under is, Derrick Henry rambling 80 yards or 99 yards and getting a touchdown in one down. And the next thing you know, you're off to the races. But this against the Steelers defense, I don't think it's likely. There may be some methodical success, but Yeah, the explosive stuff. I just don't know if what in what world we expect to see it. I also think that you're going to get some pretty heavy sets. The absence of Flowers would, to me, mean like a lot more 2 tight end sets out there, and that obviously is the way that historically that's what Lamar Jackson has thrived in, kind of knifing you over the middle of the field to the likes of the Mark Andrewses and the Likeleys of the world. But yeah, I think that gives them also the personnel that they need to be successful, getting 4 yards a clip on the ground and basically bleeding this thing out. So yeah, I think if you have, and again, I've said this before, and I think I feel even stronger about it now. If you have an inclination to take the points with the Steelers, I would just parlay it with the under, because I don't think there's a world where the Steelers cover this number because they get to 23 points. I think there's a world where the Steelers cover this number because they hold the Ravens to like 17.
Yep, I think that makes sense. What was the line back in week 16?
It opened
6.5.
5. It opened 5. It closed 7. So the market in that game said, we need a big adjustment in favor of the Ravens against the Steelers, and now we're going another field goal. Wow.
Yeah. I gotta say, if Russell Wilson doesn't think he's Josh Allen at the goal line in that one where he tried to truck the Ravens defender and fumbled it instead of just scoring, which is a massive swing in the game.
Point.
Like, it was Russell Wilson was driving to tie the game up when he threw the pick 6 to Marlon Humphrey in the fourth quarter. Right? That wasn't. Looked like a blowout on paper, but it was, somewhat close. It felt very Ravens Steelers-ish. So yeah, I would be begrudgingly on Pittsburgh at the number, which seems to have gotten a little bit out of control. Okay, we'll break down Vikings-Rams in a bit more detail for the Monday show, given that there is a lot going on there. But with the Eagles-Packers, do you think that with the kind of greater certainty that Jalen Hurts is going to go, that it has settled into the right spot at Eagles -4.5?
I do. I agree wholeheartedly right now that the market is at this number. The longer it's taken me a while to get to this point. And I think there are multiple ways to bet into this game. Even though I think the side is for the full game is now fair. First kind of angle of attack I would take is, if Jalen Hurts goes, are we expecting a rested, sharp, kind of 10 out of 10 performance? Absolutely not. That we have a decent signal with the handful of games that we've seen where Hurts has missed time, and he hasn't practiced in something like 20 days. Like, this has been an extended absence where he has not been participating in team activities. He has been recovering from a concussion. And I think the chances that he is rusty coming out of the gate are high. He was rusty coming out of the gate in his last 2 extended absences. He threw picks early in both of those contests coming off of those absences. And if he is a little bit hesitant, a little bit gun shy, and or a little bit sloppy and loose with the football early on here, I think this is going to be a game that kind of comes to a boil pretty slowly. The first half under is absolutely one of the stronger looks of the week, in my opinion. This is a 22.5 point spread that I think should be 21. And in general, if these two teams are a little bit feel each other out through the first half of this game, I'm not going to be surprised. I would also like to kind of ask you, if you were the offensive coordinator and Kellen Moore, and I'm not exactly sure what distinguishes Kellen Moore at all. Like, I don't really know what his identity is, but if you were him, would you be inclined to put Jalen Hurts' head in harm's way with the short yardage quarterback sneaks before you kind of know that you have to? And, is that more likely to kind of lean them into a conservative style of offense, assuming that they can let their defense probably do the job for the most part in this one?
Yeah, I suspect it's just going to be full go on Hurts now that it's the playoffs. Perhaps if it was a regular season game, they wouldn't be as willing to do that. But to me, the most interesting thing with the offense is that, to me, the defining aspect of Green Bay's defense was revealed in that Minnesota game where Darnold just eviscerated them over the middle of the field. And that was the avenue to Minnesota having all of their, or a huge chunk of their success was the middle of the field stuff. He doesn't really use that part of the field that well his entire career. It's Jalen Hurts. who basically throws go balls and likes to run the ball and is super effective in his own way. But I don't think this is really the matchup to target the Packers over the middle of the field. So I don't think the Packers defense is very good overall, at least relative to where they finish statistically. And I think that the Eagles will have other ways that they can exploit them. But it's an extremely strange matchup because they're very strange teams. It's in terms of the fact that the Packers, they don't really have a marquee win this season. Jordan Love is a unique quarterback where, statistically, efficiency-wise, he's been, you prorate his season out and he's a borderline MVP candidate when you adjust for some luck elements. But Love in pure pass sets, suspect. Hurts in pure pass sets, suspect. And two teams that really like to lean on the run and I don't think are going to be as successful. So, yeah, this is a kind of game where I could see it getting out of hand in either direction when one of the teams is forced to drop back and pass a lot.
Okay. I like that breakdown. So as I look at this, I see the unit that I have the least questions about is the Philadelphia defense. I think they are exceptional at defending the screen. I think Matt LaFleur basically has to take the screen out of the playbook, put it in his back pocket. Like, I don't know that you have enough of an advantage there that you're going to win. And I think the fact that Watson is not your game breaker downfield, I don't think that you really are going to be able to test the over the top. And I think as the game kind of, as we kind of settle into this, I think Vic Fangio can actually be a little bit more aggressive, not necessarily employ his, don't beat us over the top, because I just don't think that there's a weapon that can beat you over the top on the field for this Packers team. So basically, this is going to come down to, can they move the ball on the ground? And they're going to have to do it outside the tackles because I don't think you have any kind of an advantage with Jalen Carter in the middle. And I think that, that's not necessarily where Jacobs does his best work. So I think the Packers are in a little bit of a spot of bother here about staying on schedule, keeping down and distance favorable, and they're going to be relying on Jordan Love making heroic plays from 3rd and 8 pretty regularly. And I just don't know that that's something that I kind of like. Your elbow's fine, but prove it. Like, let's see it. Let's see you kind of complete these high leverage, kind of heroic plays from long down and, long distance, late down. And then, if you can do that early in this game, then I'll end up eating it with this first half under, the full game under probably. And then on the flip side, Jalen Hurts, you're on time, you're on rhythm, you're in step with your wide receivers. Your goal ball is where you think it's going to go. You're not just throwing up, arm punts that Xavier McKinney can get under. Prove it. And I think that a lot of the first half of this game is going to be pretty conservative. And, if I'm either one of these teams, I would like to, be able to control the ball, keep my defense in a fresh state for the second half. And, I don't know that you're going to see many explosive fireworks in this one. So, if you made me take a side, even at 4.5, I would take Green Bay. And the reason I would do that is because I think there's a chance you get to halftime and Green Bay either has a 3-point lead or is it's a tie ball game. And at that point, you can probably get off it with the Philly second half bet. Maybe Philly opens up the playbook a little bit in the second half and can really test some of the corners. But it's been a long time since we've seen a fully functional, fully healthy passing offense for this Eagles squad. And I kind of think that the Packers match up okay with them.
Okay. Yeah, I do think it's going to end poorly for Philadelphia eventually. I'm not sure if it's going to be this week, but I can see Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni screaming at each other as they walk off the field at some point, whether that's on the day of the Super Bowl or whether it is against the Green Bay Packers. We'll see. All right, Super Wildcard Weekend. On Sunday night, catch rookie superstar Jane Daniels and the Commanders as they travel south for a date with Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. Coverage of the win-or-go-home battle begins at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. All right, wildcard weekend props. We have passing yards leader, receiving yards leader, rushing yards leader. Was there anyone in any of these categories that really leapt out to you, Drew?
There's a couple, and I kind of want to qualify this with I'm trying not to double and triple down on my opinion, if that makes sense. if you want liquidity in these games, sometimes if you think the highest scoring game is going to be Buffalo Denver, you're better off just betting the over than trying to get super weird, because sometimes the game state ends up dictating much more than what the fair side and total would be for these sort of props. That said, it is always fun to attack rushing leader by trying to identify your feistiest quarterbacks, and the quarterback with the most speed and the price that's the least defensible is honestly Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix could be a problem for the Bills on the ground. Now, I laid the price with the Bills. I think the over is the right side in Buffalo, Denver, although I have a weak opinion of that. And I think there's a possibility that is their plan A to sustain drives, because I think the rushing attack for Denver otherwise is pretty pedestrian. And so that's kind of my thought process for these wild card weekends is like really like what are like the true black swan type of things that no one sees coming, and how do you attack those? And it's the unknown, it's the unexpected as far as rushing for quarterbacks in the rushing yards leader department. And and I guess I should also qualify, like, a lot of times it's fun betting on the quarterbacks here because they're more inclined to run in the playoffs because health all of a sudden goes out the window. Like, this is win or go home. The running backs who are at the top of this board have gotten a ton of usage throughout the season. And these guys are not as spry. They're not as lively as they were in week 12. And so using any kind of season-long average is not giving you as much of an indication of what they're capable of this moment. And I think that does open up the door for a lot of value on the quarterbacks. Is there a quarterback rushing leader that you have eyes for?
I mean, obviously Lamar is the one who leaps out, but he shouldn't be in a position really to be running so much. I think that one guy who is a little bit interesting in that he's on a team that is favored by 9 points and he's kind of relatively unopposed in the backfield is that James Cook is 28-1. Now, James Cook hasn't had monstrous rushing games this season, but he's topped 100 yards 4 times. And I think that he has some scope to, you always have to ask yourself with these markets, like, what is the number that the player has to get to realistically have a solid chance of winning? And I think that the most insightful thing, I guess I could say about any of these markets is that the way there is a certain lack of sophistication in the way that they are priced, in that it is really just taking every player's over and under and then just kind of applying out just a uniform standard deviation to get to these type of prices. And it's not like it's baking in the individual variance of a player. And so that's where the gaps would be. So for instance, like Pat Fryermuth and Jaden Reed are both priced at 50-1 to lead the weekend in receiving yards. Like, what is the scope of Pat Fryermuth to actually outperform every other receiver this weekend? Like, I would say almost non-existent. Whereas Jaden Reed, who, his median outcome is probably, very similar to Pat Fryermuth's. Jaden Reed also has had multiple games this year where he's had 135 plus receiving yards. Like, he has higher end outcomes. By the way, one of those games came against the Eagles, where he had 138 in Brazil. So, look, I don't think that Jaden Reed is going to lead everyone in receiving yards this weekend, but at least he has more scope. Or how about the guy Quentin Johnston, 65-1, who's playing in a dome and just had 1 million receiving yards out of nowhere in a dome against the Raiders on the weekend? Like, you want high variance guys like that in these markets who actually have the scope to be number one. You don't want to be kind of put off by median outcome. Like Rashad Bateman, 65-1. Rashad Bateman's going to be the number one wide receiver for Lamar Jackson in a matchup against a team that has been vulnerable to opposing wide receivers in the deep ball. So those would be the type of guys that I'd be looking at. Bateman, Quentin Johnston. It's kind of hard to go to war with those guys against Justin Jefferson and Puka Nacua, but those would be my looks on the board. But anything else that jumps out to you from these markets?
Those are fun recommendations. I think the point about Lamar Jackson has been something that's been in the back of my head, which is he could just be your playoff rushing leader. Like number one, he's playing wild card week. Number two, I think against the Bills, against the Bills, to me are actually like a sneaky. I want my quarterback scrambling. Like that linebacking core is slow. You can get outside of you can get outside of their edges, I think, capably. Like those guys are a little one-dimensional in terms of downfield speed. And I think the Bills are somewhat susceptible to QB rushing. So Lamar having big rushing games against both the Bills and the Chiefs is for real. And then Super Bowl, presumably if they get there, he will have already played 3 games, and he could that could already be on ice. So that's a kind of a fun superlative, but yeah. The only kind of tried and true angle I have on these markets are swing for the fences. Like if you think there is a game state that favors a specific team, really pushing on the gas pedal as far as passing goes, there's probably another way to bet into that with the total that is even more resilient and either higher liquidity proposition for you. So I tend to only really go for the absurd, super long shot black swan stuff.
Indeed. Okay, America's top high school football prospects face off in the annual All-American Bowl presented by America's Navy. Watch the nation's best this Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Okay, let's close out with our best bets for the weekend. I'll start us off. I'm taking the Washington Commanders +3 at your Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. I just don't understand why this line is 3, why the market is pricing us the Bucs as the better team when you account for home field advantage, which obviously is material. But for the majority of the season, the Commanders have been priced as the superior team to Tampa Bay. I think they have a better offense than Tampa Bay. I think they have a better defense than Tampa Bay. I prefer their head coach to Tampa Bay's head coach. And I'm willing to go to war with Jaden Daniels. Not worried about rookie potential failings. Huge red flags for Tampa Bay. The fact that Spencer Rattler lit them up and that game somehow came down to the wire when they were 2 touchdown favorites. The main thing is that I believe in Jaden Daniels. I believe this is his superhero origin story on Sunday Night Football, and I think that the Commanders will cover +3. What is your best bet?
Okay, you're throwing caution to the wind in the face of experience. I am embracing experience, and that is a young quarterback who has shown us when the games matter the most, he is able to produce some of his best football, and that is C.J. Stroud and the Texans. This is now the 3rd weekend in a row on the road for the Chargers, a travel-weary team that had to fight their way into the playoffs, played at New England, at Las Vegas, now travels at Texas, plays an early time slot, a slot that the Texans are too familiar with, not in terms of playoff Saturday. And I think the Texans defense is the standout unit here, and the Texans offense can do just enough to get this thing home. I actually like the money line at +135 just as much as I like +3 at -115. I think if the Texans are competitive in this one, they find a way to win. And most of my confidence really comes down to, I think the offensive line for the Chargers is overrated by market. I think the defense for the Chargers is overrated by market. And I think Stingley can wipe out the great Quentin Johnson and really make life hard for Mr. Justin Herbert. And so, yes, Texans can win this one. I think both sides of the football and get another home playoff win for CJ Stroud.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. This one as well. This would have been my other bet. Like, would the Chargers really be 7-point favorites if they were home against Houston in this game? Like, I just don't. Where are these teams rated? Like, are the Texans just an atrocity now? I guess maybe, but I think that it's been a little bit too aggressive. So, yeah, I would be with you on the Texans. All right, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we'll see you soon.